Hello everybody and welcome to the GomTV MSL Season 1. This is going to be Bisu versus Canata in this MSL. Now this is going to be Bisu's first game in the MSL. He's aligned on that left side in the left booth here. And he will be playing a Terran today that is Canata. He's actually not currently teammates with Canata because he is playing for NBC Game Hero. Meanwhile, Canata is playing for T1. So SK Telecom T1 is his team and has been a staple Terran for, well, was a staple Terran for quite a few years and produced some pretty interesting games. Some people consider him a very boring Terran player. Sometimes his games tend to last a really long time, especially in his TVTs. But how good is Canata's PVT? We have yet to find out, as he will be playing a pretty decent Protoss player. Bisu, this is his first MSL, and will he be able to advance through this stage? According to the information of this video, this is going to be January 4th, 2007, and it's going to be for the round of 16 losers. And so, interestingly enough, that means we're skipping past a round of 32 games that Bisu played in to be fighting on a live match against Canata. Going into the map, it is going to be on Longinus 2, Bisu spawning at that 7 o'clock position. Meanwhile, over at the 2-ish 3 is going to be that Terran spawning position for Canata. And both these players hoping to advance past the round of 16. It's going to get pretty intense, as I'm sure if this is the losers round, one of them will get eliminated from this game. Let's talk about Longinus 2 a little bit as the early game starts on. It is a 3-player map. It's kind of got like a angled triangle in the middle, and that whole angled triangle is completely filled in with a high ground space. It's a wide open area, and it's got several different ramp locations at the convex portions of the triangle. And so you can go and engage on that middle main ground here. And as far as the TVP goes, it is a very Protoss favored map, especially with those wide areas in the middle. That's what I'm talking about. That you can take good engagements against the Terran army as the mech tries to push across. And there's a lot of different ways to try and backstab your enemy, and some good recall positionings. So, like, the main is really wide open. And it's gonna be hard to turret up and defend against that sort of aggression if arbiters are the choice. I don't see carriers as useful in PvT on this map, but I could see that carriers could also be used to harass basically the 5 o'clock base and the 12 o'clock base can both be harassed pretty easily on top of that water area at those expansion locations. So both these players, looks like Bisu is going for an expansion really early on, and that could benefit him. So I actually identified the positions backwards. Bisu is going to be over at that 3 o'clock, and Canata is going to be at the Terran 7. So I hope you put that together before I had to correct you guys. And the refinery is up, so it looks like just a block at the front with the barracks and the supply depot. And one more supply depot should be enough to prevent the probe from getting inside, which means that Canata's being kind of greedy and not building a marine at all to defend with, and going really fast for that factory. And what I think Canata is going to want to do is pump out a couple vultures early on to use for harassment, maybe get fast spider mines. Okay, so a marine is going to be coming out, but if this is going to be a one base timing attack by Canata instead of going for that command center at the natural base, then it could be pretty effective because Bisu can't actually tell if there's a command center mining at the natural for Canata. And this is the best quality possible for the video. I'm sorry if you guys are having trouble watching this cast today, but like I said, this is a game from 2007, played in January 4th to be exact, and this is what the graphics were like back then, or available to the foreign community. So it looks like the command center is going to be built at the natural base, and an additional gateway. So Bisu did go for the faster nexus and throw down a second gateway afterward. And unless you can scout out your opponent pretty quickly, especially because it's a 3-player map. And so what Bisu does is he identifies, does his opponent look like he's going to be aggressive, or can I go for just that one gate earlier on, get my core upgrade, and then add in that gateway afterward to produce the amount of army I'm going to need to deal with any sort of early game aggression coming from the Terran player. So it looks like the Dragoon is going to be able to pick off this SCV, two Dragoons in the way, and it's going to die off pretty quickly here. Generally, if there's just one Dragoon trying to block the scout, the SCV can make it pretty far into the Protoss base. And now what you want to do as a Protoss player is camp your early Dragoon forces outside that natural base of your Terran opponent. He's generally not going to be able to push you back because you can micro against the speed of the Marines. And even with tanks, if you find out that they have siege mode, that's just more information to you. But otherwise, you can just harass at the front until your opponent is forced to show that the siege mode tech is finished up. And it looked like Bisu wanted to maybe get aggressive here, so because there's a really slow pull on an SCV to repair at the supply depot there, and it would have been really interesting if that supply depot went down, because a Zealot could have run in there and started harassing the SCV line, and chaos would have ensued for Canata, as he would have had to unsiege his tanks and reposition them in a place where he could pick off those 3 aggressing units. But it looks like the scout is going to happen with that Marine. With the graphics here, it actually looked like a Zergling. And my mind was trying to wrap my head around it. But that was a Marine that ran inside the natural base, sees everything that is going on for Bisu. But the thing is, it really doesn't hurt Bisu all that much, because he's going for standard 2 base right now. And this is everything that you want to do as a Protoss player, especially when you're going to be looking for that 3rd base and expanding outward, getting that robotics facility for the observatory, and get your observers out so you can deal with that mid-game Terran force. And so 3 factories getting thrown down in addition to the one that's already inside of this main base. And Canata's looking like he's in pretty decent shape. Honestly, he's going to want to end up having 5 factories before he will push out with his army, because you need to make sure you have that perfect amount of production off your 2 bases, and behind that you can expand for a 3rd as you approach the Protoss base. But Bisu, he's definitely going to be looking for this 3rd nexus here, as he's got the production. He hasn't been harassed at all, so his worker count is really high right now as you constantly probe. You never once want to cut your probes up to this point in the game. And now what you want to do is do a wall off with your pylons to make sure vultures can't run in and harass on your 3rd base. Now, something else that really helps out is once you get your first observer, is you immediately send it to where you want your 3rd base to be, to check for spider mines, because you don't want to get there and not be able to build your nexus at the timing that you want. So sometimes you can send your slow observer towards your opponent's base to get more information on them. But if you're feeling pretty confident about the space that they've taken up and what tech they have, then send that observer over to your 3rd first, so you can take it a lot quicker and much more safely. But that's just definitely an option for you. You don't have to, that's nothing set in stone. A lot of people like to get the observer in their opponent's base right away to see if they decided to go for, some sort of quick Stargate tech or something weird that you wouldn't expect in a PvT. Meanwhile, all the space in the main base is going to make it pretty easy for buildings to get brought up and built inside of that main base for Canata. He's getting a Stargate tech, or Starport tech, I'm sorry. And with the Starport, he's going to be able to pump out science vessels. And I would imagine that while he's pushing out with these tanks right now, probably to establish some presence towards the middle of the map, it's really going to be hard to take on the Protoss army of Bisu without the science vessels brought into the mix. And still right now it's a passive game, but this is really what both players want to do. As a Protoss player, you want to make sure you establish that third before you get aggressive with your main core army. And if you have no harassment mixed into your build as a Protoss player, then this is going really good. You want your Terran opponent to play super standard and hope that you can overcome them when the giant battle begins. And as a Terran player, you want to turtle. You want to hope that no harassment opportunities have taken your SCV count down. And as you push out to take a third, you want to start putting pressure on your opponent's natural. And look at that, the SCV able to just get through that entanglement of pylons. And we'll be able to identify that there is a third base there. I would not be surprised if Bisu brought maybe a Dragoon over to pick off the SCV, but that would be about it. It looks like one of Bisu's probes just being a brave little tiger there to push out the scouting unit. And look at this dropship play. So interestingly enough, with the Starport add-on, we're going to see dropship play out of Canata instead of going for size vessels first. So how much damage is this going to do? It's right out of the range of the Dragoons. Whoa, Bisu moved his Dragoons up just in time, so it looked like maybe he had some sort of reaction here. But he's not going to be able to get his Dragoons inside of that third base army here. But a cannon does finish up. Canata looks like he got scared out of the base, and he's retreating now instead of going for that primary attack. And meanwhile, something to note is that while we do see vultures laying down mines, we're about 10 minutes into this game now, and Canata has not established any sort of heavy presence with his spider mines all over the map. And that's something that you definitely need to focus on a large map like this, where you can catch units off guard in the middle. And it looks like some decent control by Bisu, only getting hit by one of the spider mines, was able to pick off the other two and keep his Zealot alive. And every little bit counts as both players are trying to get that perfect 200 composition to engage against the Terran army. So the tanks are moving out to this third base, trying to get a better, more secure location. And like I said, because it's such an open area, you want to make sure you cover all the ground with your missile turrets. So Kanata's getting himself in a really safe and secure position here. And once he takes that third, he can actually start thinking about his fourth location, which would possibly be up towards that 9 o'clock base or down at the bottom 6 o'clock. But I think the bottom 6 o'clock base might be the best location, because the Terran army is going to be making its direct line from the third base location over to that 4 o'clock, where Bisu has taken his natural. And okay, so no spinning on those forges, so you can see that the upgrades have kind of been held up for a momentary second here. And the Dragoons are moving in. This is a pretty large force, but the problem is with just pure Dragoons, they're going to die off really quickly. There's nothing to take the damage of those tanks and just running there very quickly. So you need to bring in those Zealots with their leg enhancements to be able to deal with that army. Meanwhile, these tanks are in a perfect distance here to apply pressure for Bisu, who's going to have to take down one of his pylons at the front so he can run Zealots in here. And that's exactly what he's going to be doing, bringing in 2 groups of Zealots right away to deal with this. He's not going to want to take a risk at all. Oh, can he actually run between the pylon spaces here? He doesn't have to take any down. Perfect. So those Zealots are going to be able to get in there just fine to deal with this aggression. But still, the vultures are getting some nice hits on the probes, actually forcing a pull from the gas there. The tanks do get cleaned up though, and a really nice response for Bisu. But he still has no melee tanking units to deal with the push from Canata. So if Canata was really smart, he would take his army and start putting pressure on that fourth, because he knows he can establish himself without the Zealots being there. And it looks like the tanks creeped up a little bit closer here, but the Dragoons, they still do hold that high ground space. And the goal for Bisu is to make sure he keeps those tanks off the high ground. Once these vultures go in here and establish a presence with spider mines, the tanks and the SCVs can go in there, build turrets, and control that high ground space. And Bisu is going to have to find new outlets to attack the army if he loses this high ground area. So pushing in here again without Arbiter tech, without carrier tech, it seems like Bisu is really far behind on his tier 3 support. But behind this, Kanata's, he's macroing really well. He's looking like he's in a good position. His economy is really decent. While he's running out of minerals inside of the main base, he does have a heavy third established, and he only needs 2 bases at any point to deal with this effectively. And the double armory upgrades is going to be really, it's going to prove very effective too. So Bisu could be in a lot of trouble. He needs to make sure that he secures that 4th base, which looks like a mineral only, I believe, outside of the main base at the 3 o'clock position here. And now, here come about 3 to 4 groups of vultures, and they will easily pick off all of these probes. And Bisu seems like he's found his army out of position a couple times now in this match. So maybe not playing his best game so far, but Canata, he's playing extremely well. His option to go for dropship play was very useful, and now this massive amounts of vultures, which you can just pump constantly on this mineral-heavy economy that Canata has. He's in a great position now to take out the 4th, and if Bisu loses that 4th, he'll be in a lot of trouble. He needs to make sure he can hold on to this additional nexus, and now the Arbiter pushes out here. But Arbiters take quite a bit of time to be able to get that stasis energy. And he actually isn't proving to make it useful so far, except for just the invisibility that he's cloaking his units with. But a huge runaround here. This is exactly what I was talking about for Bisu, is that if he loses to high ground, he's going to have to come in from a back location. And it looks like he did that just perfectly. His army was located out at the north and wrapped around, and now comes in and utterly destroys Canata's army. All the tanks are gone. Storm was mixed in there, so really nice moves by Bisu, as he forces Canata back into his 3rd location, where he's going to have to sit heavy again and defend, and start to think about a 4th base at this point, because the Terran natural base is going to run out soon. So he's got to establish a 4th so he can continue to produce off this mech army. Now, I like what Bisu's doing behind this is trying to take not just a 4th base that he has at that mineral location, but take a 5th base at the 11 o'clock spot. And the reason why you do this is because at this point in the game, especially when your army is around that 180 supply mark, is you're going to be floating heavy on minerals also. And so unlike the Terran player who can constantly build vultures, just, you know, suicide them in to try to take out a bunch of workers, as a Protoss player, you just want to pile on up, add cannons, and build a bunch of expansions, because that's definitely the best way to go here. So 2 Stargates for Bisu, and he's going to start to catch up in the Arbiter count. And it looks like with this shuttle, is he going to have some nice drops here? It looks like 2 beautiful storms going down, 3 now. Just a huge blanket of storms. It looks like the army isn't even going to have to engage on top of these tanks, because the High Templar just cleaned out everything. But this is the scary force right here on the low ground. That's going to be really hard to take down. But the High Templars morphed into Archons very quickly here, and the Archons are just nothing more than tanks at this point, as their damage output is not going to be effective unless they can get into that melee range. But Dragoons are still filtering down here, and it's going to be easy enough for Bisu to clear out that area. Just a bunch of spider mines and tanks reinforced in the back, and Bisu doesn't want to completely eliminate his army trying to push Canata back, because he realizes that the advantage is in Kanata's favor, because he can constantly reinforce much quicker to that 3rd location than Bisu can with his army on the aggression. But taking out this additional 4th base here, this is going to be huge moves for Bisu, as Kanata's going to be in a bad position losing that 4th base, and that command center was forced to lift. So vultures are going to be on the fly looking for new locations to harass, but Bisu's in here with those Archons and Dragoons, and it's such a deadly force, and I don't think that Canata can clear it out. But looking for drops here, this is the best thing that he could do, is continue to go with this dropship play. The tanks are going to take out the probes very quickly if Bisu doesn't respond right away, and that Nexus is actually really low on health, dropship being a little bit careless running into that photon cannon here. But now Bisu or Canata can lift up those tanks and take them out and relocate them to another position here. Oh, this is the problem of not having that many observers on the map. You have to constantly bring observers with you as a Protoss player, because those mines are going to just eliminate your army so quickly if you're not tailoring to them. So Canata, he's actually expanding with the command center to the 8 o'clock location now, realizing that the 6 o'clock no, that 5 o'clock location was just not going to work for him anymore. He doesn't have enough units to reinforce on that high ground. And this is why the map is such a Protoss favored map over Terran. It's really hard to take that 4th base, and it just seems quite unfair sometimes. And that extra gas, that 4th base gas, is so necessary to be able to produce tanks, and especially the science vessels, which are also gas heavy. You really can't produce factory and starport units at the same time unless you have that 4th base with the gas. So that's what Canata is going to be going for here. He's going to have to deal with the harassment, and the blanket of spider mines is only sitting between his natural and his 3rd base. So not a heavy presence. After all those vultures that he built earlier on, it seems like he's not doing the best job of getting that presence back. But a huge pickoff here on the Nexus is going to force Bisu's prones back. And now Bisu only has 1 effective base mining. He's not in the best resource situation either. And this game is really going back and forth. As Bisu tries to bring his Dragoons in here, he got him in a really bad situation. They're getting trapped inside, but a huge flank with Zealots completely cloaked, and I didn't see a single scan. So a huge takedown of those units. It looked like Bisu was going to lose about 2 control groups of Dragoons, but managed to maintain at least one of them as he rescues with his ground Zealots. Kind of a missed storm there, not doing too much damage. Would have liked to see those get held on to a little bit longer here. And now we're seeing that Bisu's ever important additional base here. He needs to make sure he also has a 4th, but also a 5th too. As I think that Bisu only has 1 full mineral mining base. And the Vespene, basically the Vespene gas is going to be depleted inside of his main base. And it's going to be depleted very soon inside of his natural too. While the geysers do have a lot of gas inside of them at the start, at this point in the game, we're about 21 minutes in, and things are going to start to run dry at your main and natural. And here comes the push again. It looks like Canata now wants to eliminate all these forces that are just kind of stranded on this high ground as he wants to reestablish a 5th base. And I think he might still have that command center that he could lift and fly over there. If not, just the main command center is something you can easily fly over there too. If Canata seems that starved for minerals. But I think he's doing okay. He should just go ahead and build one from scratch at this point in the game. Especially since those beautiful tank drops took out the 4th base at that 12 o'clock location. And there's still a dropship alive. That's just kind of an immortal dropship. So the SCVs are going for a little bit of a train here. It looks like they want to maybe long distance mine. Meanwhile, Bisu, he finds another opportunity to engage on these tanks. The line is really spread out for Canata, so he's actually he positioned himself really well. But the stasis fields for Bisu went down really effectively here. And look at that, the tank block on the high ground on the ramp here, so nothing can come back from that 5 o'clock location, and Bisu cleans it up. And the only way he's actually going to be able to get up that ramp is if he does some sort of recall trick. But stasis is still effective at that 3rd base. He might be able to go back in there and pick off whatever's remaining for Kanata's base over at the 3. But it looks like Bisu might be trying to just escape with as much as possible after the damage that he's done here. And the constant reproduction of Arbiters here. He's up to a count of 3. But I assume with his 2 double Stargates, he's going to have 5 very soon here. So pretty good moves by Bisu. Meanwhile, what they didn't focus on was that Canata lost his 9 o'clock base. And so he really is only back to that 3rd base mining. So a really bad situation for Terran at this time. Going to be completely starved of an economy and can only produce vultures at this point in the game. And like I said earlier, 5 arbiters are out for Bisu. So he's got the power and the forces now. It looks like with the economy here to take out Canata. It's the first part in the game where I can definitively say it looks like Bisu has a pretty solid lead at this time. Still, we're nearing a 30-minute game, sitting about 24 minutes currently, and Kanata's put up a really good match of harassing the locations that Bisu hasn't been able to defend very well. So maybe if he can get 2 more tanks inside that 4th base, Honestly, as a Protoss player, I would leave a few Zealots inside of that 12 o'clock location and make sure you didn't lose that Nexus to the tanks, because it's going to be so important. And that looks like a floated command center there, immediately over to that 9 o'clock location, because Canata needs that mining right away. He's going to need to bring a lot more units up to the 9 o'clock location to defend here, though. And immediately we see that the repercussions of not having any army to defend is going to force Canata back out of there as quickly as he was in. And there's only vultures that can be made, so unfortunately this may be some good harassment from Canata, but if he loses those vultures, then he loses his army at the same time here. So that's the problem with being able to only mine minerals at this point. And another command center being built. This has got to be a record for command centers that have been taken down by Bisu at this point in the game. Just constant destruction in this PvT. And I'm sure that Terran players are just claiming imbalance as we see another game where Canata, who's a little bit more of a veteran than Bisu at this time frame, because we're only just in 2007. Bisu's not a very accomplished pro gamer. He is playing for NBC Hero, but still very young. Meanwhile, Canata has been in the game. Let's see when his start date was. I'm very curious here. It looks like born in 1987. I can tell you that. He's 27. But when did he start? So it looks like his first game, Canata actually played against a legendary Gur in 2003 in the ITV Rivals League. So Canata has been playing significantly longer than Bisu. Those 3 to 4 extra years are just making a huge difference in the pro scene. So that's why we're seeing him be so resilient and able to hang on into this game here. Meanwhile, that's a terrifying fleet of Arbiters. Meanwhile, while their attack damage isn't huge, it looks like the recall that they're about to do is going to be ginormous. Can Bisu pull it off? Here come the recalls. One of them does get down. A really nice recall. Meanwhile, a second one towards the back location where the tanks are defending on that 5 o'clock base. And it looks like Bisu may have done it this time. He's going to force the command center to lift one more time. No destruction yet so far, but he is pushing back the army and killing off those SCVs. Is the command center even going to be able to float away? That would actually be a huge hurt to Canata if he's not going to be able to land it later. All it needs to do is catch fire here as it's getting close, and the Arbiters realize that too as they come in to help with their 3 possible damage that they have from their puny little lasers on top of that unit. So it looks like Canata, he's not very amused right now, and he's going to have to find something a little bit more drastic to stay in this game. Is there an outlet? I'm pretty sure that we can't see him now, but he is looking for an outlet to pull the electricity plug. He cannot have any more help than power outage right now. But either way, I think that Bisu has such a huge advantage in this game that the Kesper referees would call it in his favor anyway. So I'm sorry, power outage Terrans, you will not get that favor for you. And so Bisu's army is actually stuck on this high ground. If this were an intense game and Canata had a little bit more economy, he could go for a counterattack while containing Bisu's tank army with his tanks. But it looks like another recall here, and he's just going to be phase warping his units as they hop around from base to base and take down this Terran force. Canata, it looks like he might be eliminated from the round of 16, as this is the round of 16 losers matchup. And Bisu looks to take this game by force. Meanwhile, these Zealots are going to run through here and going to get some free kills from these spider mines, but they will gladly soak it up for ire, as they do not care as long as the Protoss can win this match. And these poor SCVs, only 4 here, and they're actually turning around to attack because they know that they cannot just call in reinforcements to drop in and defend at this location. As this command center goes down, I don't know if Canata even has the resources to build an additional base. He could be that dry if we only had a resource counter here available to us, but we do not. And a tank vulture clear out of the forces that were remaining. It seems like Bisu's militia wasn't going to be strong enough, and he's going to have to re-macro up and go in for another engagement here before he can force this late GG Terran out of the game. And here come the tanks pushing out again, but no reinforcements here. There's no Goliaths. I mean, Bisu could switch over to carriers right now and win the game, but I think it would take too long for him to switch to those carriers when he could just kind of overwhelm his opponent right now and win regardless. And here come the Dragoons with a lackluster Zealot army here, where he could have killed things off a lot quicker. And that Archon, though, the Archon actually, you know, managed to take out a tank before he killed him off. But we know how many games Bisu has lost due to building Archons instead of High Templars. But GG, it's going to be called, and Canata is going to be knocked out, and Bisu will survive, which means that it would be Bisu versus Hwasun on Reverse Temple in GomTV's MSL Season 1. And as I'm looking at the VODs here, it looks like the next VOD for this game versus Hwasun is not actually available. It looks like a Google video. If you guys remember, Google video actually existed here. And who else does Bisu play in this MSL? He does play Light on the map Desert Fox, so Desert tile set, one we haven't seen in quite some time here. And that's going to be another Google video VOD. So it seems very unfortunate that those do not exist.
박주호 선수 아쉽게 탈락한 박주호 선수의 뭔가 이제 유지를 잇는 듯한 그런 그 아주 김태경 선수만의 또 다른 스피릿을 볼 수가 있었고요. 그리고 고인규 선수 입장에서 가장 아쉬운.
Okay, guys, it looks like the next game is going to be a little bit too long that I can cast, that I would be able to cast for the Bisu hour. So that's going to be it for the Bisu hour today. Thank you guys for watching. It definitely has been a huge enjoyment casting with you, and I will be back tomorrow to continue the MSL. And let me hype this up now. It looks like Bisu's games here, he actually beat Hwasun. He loses to Light in the first best of 3, in the first game of a best of 3, defeats Light in his next 2 wins, and that's going to put him all the way down to a matchup against Now Ra. And Now Ra is a great Protoss player. He's absolutely legendary. And let me see if I can finalize what round that is and what we're going to start tomorrow. I think playing Now Ra is in the round of 8. So we'd be jumping from the round of 16 to the round of 8. It could be the round of 4 even. Don't know all these stats for the MSL Season 1. But I can bring that up very shortly here, I'm sure. Let's see. Get you guys ready for tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow you guys will be watching me cast Now Ra versus Bisu and the semifinals match A, where Bisu will be fighting to be in the grand finals of the MSL. I hope to see you guys there. Thank you very much and take care. Good night.